Ah, yes, the fabled Captain Connor chapter. I like Captain Connor. I have brought this up multiple times in my reviews, especially recently because he's been active. I like the Captain Connor character and the questions around him in the series. I like that he's this kind of old, goofy ace pilot. He's a very interesting character. He's probably one of my favorites in the series from a story standpoint, because there's just a lot about him that makes him extremely intriguing as a character. He's not the best character in terms of like what he does, but whenever he's on screen, he's doing stuff, and every time he's on screen, it makes you wonder a lot of things about his character, a lot of questions behind him. And that's one thing that keeps the story alive as things are going. And I think that keeping Captain Connor a mystery and then going into a time skip where it wasn't a time skip where characters are separated, because when there's a separation in verse, like, despite whatever kind of separation is, maybe, whether it's like forced or the characters have their own training thing or whatever, despite how long it is as well, it presents a question of, okay, like, what's happened to this character? What did they go through? What do they come out with? What are they capable of now? But one of the things of when they're separated, despite all these things, puts a lot of questions about, like, again, the gap between what's gone on with those characters. But from a standpoint of the mystery of that event, whereas like the Eden Zero crew through a time skip, though it was 3 years, they were together, and we don't know if there's any like new plot points that have developed between them, or any kind of questions that have come up over those 3 years. Because we had a lot of stuff not entirely resolved, but a lot of stuff moved forward, and a lot of questions in the series. Because questions, again, they keep stuff alive. They keep you wondering about aspects that are coming in the future. Despite, like, advancements in plot and story, when there's reveals and whatnot, like, it's always cool to find out, like, answers and stuff. There should always be stuff until the end of, like, questions about, like, well, what about this thing? Why is this in what aspect of the series? Like, why did a guy 20,000 years in the future find Rebecca's B cube on, like, some desolate moon or something, and there's, like, a big shattered moon far off in the distance? Stuff like that is, like, a question that's, what's the questions about Mother? Stuff like that keeps Eden Zero's, the large-scale series alive, and Captain Connor is one of those things. And I compared him to Mystagun in Fairy Tail. Like, when he was, like, anytime we saw him, there was just like so many questions about his character. And that's the thing about Captain Connor. We're gonna find out about like Captain Connor's deal, but until then, like, he's just a character that we're so in the dark about. We have no idea what's going on. So I just enjoy anytime we have like a Captain Connor like focused bit in the story, because it all it does is further build upon that. And I think it's gonna have a really good payoff when we find out the answers behind his character. Like, why is he so good of a pilot? Like, at the same time, why is he piloting the Eden's one, but now he's like doesn't know, and he was like a factory worker. I'm still going with my theory that he was like this. It's kind of like a Jango Fett thing. Sorry if you can hear the dog in the background. But it's like a Jango Fett thing where they cloned like this peak pilot, but instead of a fighter, where it's like he's just this amazing pilot that they can clone and always have like this ace pilot to put out there to, do ace pilot things, in whatever scenario. I did like the racer cameo. I thought that was pretty cool. The whole racer class ships, and I like cameos. I like when there's like Easter eggs and cameos. If you just read Eden Zero, this would be nothing to you. But if you read Fairy Tail, you'd understand. This is Sawyer. This is Racer from the old Horatio Sace. It's the same thing of like if you read Rave Master, you would see Rave Master references in both Fairy Tail and in Eden Zero. Like, just for instance, if you didn't read either Fairy Tail or Rave Master, and you saw the whole statement with Ethereon and then the 3713 door, you'd have no idea what that references to. You wouldn't get that reference at all. It would just be a mystery, like, in general. It's still something that's in the story and that there's questions around, but you wouldn't get either of those connection points. Same thing with Mildian. You wouldn't understand like Mildian's like why Mildian is named after it for Zhao Mei's planet. But like he's in there. He just works, I guess, for Holy. And Holy, I'm fine if Holy is just like a support fighter. If she's like, you know, she's got this really good tactician-based ability and she buffs up her minions with it. My only thing again is still like, why doesn't she have strong minions then that she can actually buff up and make a difference? Why does she just have fodder numbers? Unless they just straight underestimated the Eden Zero crew, which that's their fault then, and she's an idiot for doing so. But I feel like even say Ocean's level characters, like buffed up with Future Sight and whatever other buff she can give, could still be a formidable opponent and still like be strong in numbers and still have like be able to put up a decent fight, I think. But we don't have that. It's just like straight fodder for her. So it makes you just wonder, like, what was her plan? It reminds me of actually I don't want to go into the too many references. Well, this will just be another one because it's an easy one to do. In One Piece, when they sent like fodder to go arrest Mihawk, and it's like, why? Why wouldn't you send somebody significant? You're just sending people to get the shit kicked out of them or die. Like, don't do that. Don't send fodder to go after like extremely like people that, it doesn't matter about how powerful, but like don't send people that you know aren't going to be strong enough to beat people you know are way stronger. If you guys are aware of like threat levels for characters, don't send fodder after them. Send the appropriate threat. Like, it just makes sense. And clearly Feather, like, as far as we know, she said she had some other trump card. We don't know what that is yet, but as far as we've seen, she's a powerful support style fighter. But once Captain Connor starts piloting, he's just blitzing all of them. He's having no problems dancing around all these guys. He's just casually like moving through like big asteroid fields and is having no issue just dodging them. Feather is still there, and she's like boosting up her ship, giving her like wings on it, making her faster. So clearly she's not done. I'm hoping that she's able to actually fight and do stuff. We'll see. But her speed is what's emphasized here, because clearly the Eden Zero is a fast ship, but you know, outside of Captain Connor, they wouldn't have been able to pilot it at the quality and technique at this level of speed to dodge all of these asteroids. And that emphasizes, one, Captain Connor's skill, but also Feather's speed and skill. Feather's got a smaller ship, so it's way less, I would assume, on the skill level of going through an asteroid field in a ship, because, you know, the size would be very important when you're, you know, moving around a big field. And I do gotta say, when Captain Connor says fire and Shiki says don't shoot, and he's like saying no, the asteroids, I gotta say for Shiki, if in this scenario, if he actually wanted to shoot Feather, I would just do it. Like, she's a threat to the Eden Zero crew. They're not doing anything bad. They're just not like abiding by all their rules. Like, even though they're not like a bad force. They're literally just kind of like a runaway. I guess like not runaway, but sort of kind of like a runaway gang of crime fighters. Not necessarily to that same, like the way that name sounds, but you understand the kind of gist. They're going around stopping Ziggy and fighting other bad guys and stuff. They're not going around pillaging planets or conquering or just like attacking, you know, people for no reason. They're not doing it, as far as we know, they're not doing anything bad. They're just, you know, they should be, like, even from the idea of them not abiding by the rules, they're doing stuff that benefits the whole union, the whole intergalactic union. So it's like, I don't know, or what is the whole name? The whole, you know, the interstellar. Oh my god, I forget the name of the frickin' Eden Zero. Was it UIA? Like, I forget the name of their organization all the time. I don't know why. Like, their whole military thing, the whole galactic intelligence agency. Oh, wait, no, that's Gia. That's where frickin', what's her name is from. I'm having so much trouble remembering, but I'm gonna remember. Interstellar Union Army. There we go. I was like thinking about something similar to that, but I was like, why would they name it that, but then have their group be the Interstellar? which I guess is like kind of like probably the point, but at the same time it's kind of weird. The Interstellar Union Army Erasion States Galactica or Erasion States Interstellar. Sorry, I'm fumbling over some words clearly over this one, but I thought Feather's display good. Hopefully she can fight. Again, if she's a support person, all I require her is to have people that are relevant that she's buffing and supporting. Because a support character is useful. It just like needs to be used properly. You can't just send a support character a bunch of fodder. If you had a support character go fight somebody, why would you not have like why would you not send proper people for them to accommodate rather than like, you know, really weak people? But he ends up just shooting a bunch of the asteroids. That is just kind of creating smaller debris that messes up her ship, because obviously more small debris is going to be harder for her ship to move. Where it's like the Eden Zero can just plow, like even the idea if like any of these hit them, they're tiny, whereas like her they're still big compared to her ship. But for the Eden Zero, it's like a much easier thing just to kind of like crash through. So they're going over to the Kaede Cosmos now, and I understand what Shiki's saying when he's like, when they're like, oh, you know, we found a captain for our ship. I think he means it more like a pilot, kind of like captain who is literally piloting the ship versus captain, like the guy who's in charge. Because there's no way that Shiki's not going to be in charge because Connor is now piloting the ship. My big question when we see Ziggy later, what's going to be the deal with Captain Connor? Like, is there going to be another Captain Connor that flies the Eden's 1? Is there going to, like, are we going to get 2 Captain Connors? I think so. My guess right now, and I think the most logical thing for a sci-fi series, is that he's, like, a cloned ace pilot. Because, like, think of the idea. Think of, like, the world you're in, and you have this amazing pilot. Because it also would make sense to his age. He's an old guy. If, like, oh, well, he's getting old, but we want to keep him, what if we clone him, kind of thing. It would just make sense. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. And the last bit thing is Feather talking to Holy. And I know I'm using Holy like looking pretty good in the map. But Holy's bit at the end of the chapter is what was my favorite thing in the chapter, because it was hype. Like, she's like, you know, I'm gonna launch an immaculate military operation. So we're going to see what she can do. And I'm guessing with like the level of confidence around her, the look on her face and her whole thing about like, well, I'm just going to, you know, she's not going there by herself. She's like, I'm going to launch a military plan on how to go about this. I think she's going to be like, yeah, we're going to bring ships. We're going to bring good people. I bet she's powerful. I bet she's got a good ability. She's been hyped up a little bit. So I assume that she's going to be more in the focus, because I think if she in the whole union, she says like, okay, well, we're going to bring some of the best people we have, you know, because they should have more strong people under under their rank, under the Interstellar. She brings a couple of them. So then Feather has strong people to buff, and then she can fight as well. Then you'd have essentially like a pretty strong duo of a powerful support character and a powerful fighter with multiple small level minions. Like, well, maybe like more like mid bosses, kind of like characters where they're going to be fair fights. They're not going to be as easily toppled as like the Oceans, but they're going to be more like upper medium level difficulty fights for the characters. So it's like after they fight them, it's like, well, maybe will they be able to continue, and then how? But there's a lot of questions right now with what's going on in terms of like the smaller details for the setup of this arc, and I've liked that. I enjoyed this right now. I thought the time skip was a little bit like, it was surprising in its placement, and then the first couple chapters where they're a little bit slow, but I like where things are moving right now. And I'm excited to see what's going to go on as obvious as it seems is with the Captain Connor stuff. I want to see what happens with that. I want to see what happens with Feather. And then what's going to go down with Ziggy when they get there. Because Ziggy's a big question right now for, like, are they going to go there and fight him? Because clearly now it's going to be the Eden Zero going there, and then Feather and Holy showing up at some point. But there's going to be Ziggy as the direct opponent they're going to already be facing. So there's a lot of interesting pieces coming into the fray. And I do like that about Eden Zero's setup, because you have characters all throughout space and they have their spaceships and stuff, and they can kind of like warp travel. That they're there's like setup of like when you know characters are on the way. And it's done more in Eden Zero than it was done than Mishima did it with Fairy Tail and Wraith Master for sure. And I like it's done in a way of like, all right, you know, everyone's like, you know, get in the ship. We're gonna go down there and we're gonna form a plan. Like he gets that set up way more in this series of like characters in their movements, because I think it needs it more when you have something like moving mass units rather than like one character or like maybe a couple characters. When it's, say, in Feather's case, Holy's case, she's going to bring, you know, as she says, a military operation. She's going to, you know, it's got to be emphasized, she's bringing a lot of people. At some point, we need to know that she is moving a whole big group of their, you know, military force to, you know, wherever Shiki in the Eden Zero is going to be. So I like where things are going right now. Good stuff. Excited for this next chapter. There's a lot of good stuff in this next week for content of series, so I'm hyped. Anyway, other than that, no, comment below, thumbs up the video, befriend, like button, subscribe button, and check out my other videos. But other than that, appreciate everybody subscribing, and thank you all for listening. Bye.